I was holding my breath as we approached President Biden's inauguration and was relieved when things went smoothly. President Biden's words were both peaceful and hopeful. Following through with trying to unify the country will certainly be far more challenging. Nevertheless, in my estimation, his address was a good beginning. In his speech, he referred to Abraham Lincoln signing the Emancipation Proclamation, about which Lincoln was passionate. In President Biden's speech, I also heard echoes of Lincoln's second inaugural address, considered by many historians to be Lincoln's greatest speech. As a great admirer of Lincoln for all of my adult life, he certainly got my attention. The great African-American abolitionist Frederick Douglass said, quote, "Lincoln's address sounded more like a sermon than a state paper." Those were memorable words, words which will live immortal in history and be read with increasing admiration from age to age, end of quote. Indeed, it either quoted or paraphrased 4 different scripture passages. The address given on March 4th, 1865 contained only 703 words and took Lincoln about 5 minutes to read. As one historian has noted, the American public was stunned. The president had not offered the North a victory speech, nor did he excoriate the South for the sin of slavery. Instead, he called the whole country guilty of sin and pleaded for reconciliation and unity. Perhaps you're familiar with the last paragraph of that speech. I want to read it now. "With malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan, to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and a lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations." Remember, when Lincoln gave this address, this war was still being waged. It would last another month or so. Charity for all after 4 years of bloody war? The listeners were not thrilled to hear such a speech. Most people in the North wanted to hear a glorious victory speech, and many wanted revenge. They didn't want charity for all. Frankly, I hear echoes of 1 Corinthians 13 in this phrase, Paul's great chapter on love. The Greek word for love used in chapter 13 is agape, and the Latin word is caritas, the word from which we get the English word charity. Over time, the word charity became associated with giving to the poor, but it was a direct translation of the word love. In other words, what Lincoln was calling the nation to do after this terrible conflict, and what President Biden is calling us to do, is something that followers of Jesus are always called to: reconciliation. In 2 Corinthians 5, Paul refers to Jesus' followers as ambassadors of reconciliation. In the context, it is referring to being reconciled to God, but one of the outworkings of this is reconciliation with our neighbor. If you look up reconcile, you find that it means, quote, restore friendly relations between, end of quote. This is what Lincoln was asking for in his second inaugural address after the Civil War. And that is what President Biden is asking from us in his inaugural speech 2 days ago. Make no mistake about this. This is a lot easier said than done, as the phrase goes. But as difficult as reconciliation is, this is what followers of Jesus are called to. It is what it means to love like Jesus.